It's Wednesday, my dudes. Welcome back to BOOS. Hello my gorgeous angels and welcome back to my channel. Hope you're doing well today. If you're new here, what is up? I'm Liv. Pleasure to meet you. Today we have another installment of BOOS, the show where you send me your ghost stories and I judge them just for you. Let's get right into it. So you guys really came through with the stories, so we got, okay. When I was little, we lived in the middle of nowhere by an old rundown church. As soon as we moved in, I always had this uneasy feeling that something was always there. At first, nothing happened. Then after a couple of years, weird things happened, like the end of my bed used to dip at night, like someone was sat there. What? And my bedroom light used to turn on it by itself. I had to get something in the garden one morning. It was really foggy so you couldn't see the house. As I was walking back in, something whispered in my ear clear as day. I didn't dare turn around and bolted back to the house, but when my parents didn't believe me and told me I was being silly. How rude. How annoying that if you have had this kind of like experience and no one believes you. Not for me. If you can hear James doing the washing up, I profusely apologise, but the dishes need to be washed up. A couple of years later we moved out and my mum told me that one morning she was in bed and something whispered in her ear asking if she was awake yet, but it wasn't the side my dad slept on as he was fast asleep. She said that she never told us because it would scare us too much. So glad we moved. Okay, so first of all, years later your mum's like, right, I've got something to tell you, actually it did happen to me as well. I'm like, Mum, you thought it was weird for years? That's not cool. That's a good story, that's a good one. Hi Liv. Hello. I used to work at a play centre. That alone is scary to me. Kids scare me to death. One day, is that actually a play centre is for kids, isn't it? Yeah. One day I got the job to lock down. By lockdown, lockdown, I mean that I clean and make sure everything is off, everything is clean and everything is in place for the next day. When all this is done, I lock up. I'm the only one that has a set of keys. When I come back the next day, the knives are all over the floor, which are usually on this magnetic strip on the wall, and the door to the freezer is open. I'm the only one that has keys. There wasn't a break-in, and I didn't leave it like that. My boss had similar experiences. Clearly this ghost wants to be a chef, because why would they leave the freezer door open and knives on the floor? Either they're gonna try and kill you, sorry about that, or they want to do a bit of chubby chapping. Salt Bain. They just want to get, you know, some food, and I highly respect that. Oh, I love a long story. I love a long story. Hello Liv. Bonjour. Our spooky family story involves my dad and my sister. My dad is a woodworker, so had loads of projects going on in his shed at the bottom of the garden in our childhood home. A friend of my dad gave him an old wooden chair to do a fix-up, I think. My mum instantly hated it, so out to the shed it went. That's literally my mum. Like, if my dad will come home with like these comic books, and she's like, so it's the man cave, yeah? And he's like, okay. He has no saying anything, it's so funny. When my sister was 3, she went out to the shed with my dad. The chair was behind my dad. My sister said, who's that old lady in the chair? My dad said the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He turned around and saw nothing. My sister then said to my dad, oh, she's gone now. Kids don't give a single f, do they? Like, they've just seen a ghost and they're like, oh, she's gone now, it's absolutely fine. No thank you. My dad told my mum and she said it had to go. My dad tried to give it back to the man who gave it to him without saying about what had happened. The man refused and said, I can't, sorry. My children kept saying they see an old lady sitting on it. Imagine though, like you've both had the same story. No, no, no. The story has stayed with my dad even now, and my sister is in her 30s. He said that feeling he will never forget. My sister has no memory of it. I mean, I know kids are quite, is it susceptible to ghosts? I know dogs are as well. I mean, I remember my cousin was looking after her child, Ollie, and she was holding Ollie, and I think this was like many moons ago. And Ollie said, "Oh, who's the guy behind you? Like, who's the man behind you, Mom?" And Jess was like, "What?" So kids, man, kids say the craziest things. Oh Lord. A Family History of Ghosts. That's the title. Gonna be a good one. So I just want to start off by prefacing. Is that a word? Prefacing? That these were all stories told to me by different members of my family years after it happened. All these incidents happened in the same house. We later found it was built on an old burial ground. Oh my god, no! If you find out your house is is built on top of an old burial ground, get out, we're doing get out of the house song again. Leave the house. Don't, forget your belongings and all that. Just go. Jesus Lord. This is told from her mother's point of view. When my mum was about 12 and her brothers were 8 and 10, they all used to complain to their parents about a man who would stand at the foot of their bed at night. You'd complain. I'd be screaming at night. My mother's youngest brother became friends with this being and started to become violent, pushed them around, knocking things over. It once locked her 2 brothers in their bedroom and they were screaming for help. Eventually the door opened and there was trash everywhere, and the man was sat in the corner and told them to leave. This is all too much for me. I mean, I can deal with ghosts when they're like not in my bubble. When they start locking me in certain places, or they start pushing me around in my business, I don't like that. Not a big fan of that. No thank you. No thank you. Time passed. Time passed and they didn't leave, so pictures started falling off the walls, plates would be smashed, newspapers scattered like wind. My grandma was alone in the house with me as just 3 months old after my mother had given birth. She swears to this day no one else was home. My grandmother was pushed down the stairs and her leg was broken. This is not it. That ain't cool, Mr. Ghost. Don't for grandmas. A few months later, my mother saw the man again, sitting in my rocking chair in the bedroom. That if my mother didn't leave, bad things would happen to me, her baby. She moved to Ireland 4 months later and her family followed shortly after. My mother wasn't innocent in any of this. Years later, as a 10-year-old, she would tell me of her use of Ouija boards and spells she found online. I watched her do something once with a box and loads of letters written on tiny bits of paper. She said whichever letter came out, something was going to happen to that person. The letter J fell on the carpet, and my Uncle Jonathan, her brother, died half a year later at 18. This is terrifying. This is terrifying. I'm genuinely, so grandma, as a soul, loved Ouija boards. Like, she would make her own Ouija board, which is so bad, but she used to love them. So that's giving me the heebie-jeebies. A couple of weeks later, after her brother died, she woke me, a then 12-year-old, to tell me she'd just seen him in the bathroom and he asked for me. She never saw him again. My mother still regularly sages our house and tells me she believes a demon attached itself to me when I was a child. Oh, imagine your mum saying to you, by the way, I think a demon's attached to you. What? What now? What? This is absurd. I never believed any of this, but I do regularly get chills or feel like someone is watching me and half want to turn a light on to check. I wake up most mornings with split lips and bruises in random places on my body. I tell myself I'm a rough sleeper. No, you got yourself a little demon going on there. Hey demons, it's me, your girl. No, that's bad. That's a really good story. Like, oh my god, you need. I mean, I don't know what to suggest. An exorcism, Jesus, a hot bath. I don't know. Boy, oh boy, that's a good one. Hi Liv, here is my story. Not exactly spooky, but it's so important to me. Okay, I love these ones because I know if you see like a past relative come back to you, how special that is and how wonderful that is. I would never want to make fun of that. I feel like I did in the last one, so I want to apologise for that. So let's go right into it. When I was around 13, I went on a holiday with some family friends to a caravan park. My great grandmother had passed away a year before. One night we were in the clubhouse. Typical cheesy music was playing and I was sat at our table. Suddenly the music seemed to get really muffled and quiet, and everyone was still dancing like this hadn't happened. I glanced at the fire exit door, which had plain glass, and stood right there was my great grandmother. I went to say her name, but before I had the chance she put her finger to my lips and told me to be quiet and shook her head. I closed my mouth and she smiled, gave me a wave, and then slowly disappeared. As she disappeared, the music returned to an ordinary volume. It was like she was never there. And the voice sent me a picture of her, Winifred. Oh, I think that is such a beautiful moment to have, and you should cherish that because it's so wonderful and so, I'm getting emotional. It's such a nice moment, honestly. Like, oh, so thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you. My first year of uni, I house shared with a few other girls in a super old house which had the most amazing ornate marble floor in the entrance and stairway, and this intricately carved staircase. It was gorgeous. You fancy! You fancy! Good for you, boo. Anyway, the first few months, everything was cool. Nothing weird. A few creaks, but it was just old house noise. That's old house noise, you know? Old house noise. However, randomly one day I got the waft of really floral perfume going down the stairs, which I hadn't smelled before, but just assumed it was one of my housemates. It's a really unusual and unpleasant smell, almost rotten. Not nice. Just chalked it up and thought nothing of it. I sensed something spooky is gonna happen. Fast forward a few weeks and things were getting seriously strange. My best roommate and I were alone in the living room when we heard a noise coming from the stairs. It sounded like someone had thrown a book or something onto the floor, but we couldn't see anything. Again, thought nothing of it, and we were on our way back to the living room. We heard a shuffle upstairs on the landing. We looked at each other like, what was that? At this point, I was just like, nah, not doing it. Me. And we just went back to the living room. Later that night, my friend and I were chatting on the landing saying goodbye. We heard what sounded like rumbling coming from the stairs. We looked at the wooden rail and it was ever so slightly wobbly. I near about shut myself and said goodnight and went to my room. My room was in the attic. No, I don't do attics or basements. Not a bit of me, not a bit of me. My friend's room was near the landing, and she texted me a couple of times so she could hear noises on the landing and wouldn't come down. I was like, hell no. Again, me. I ain't messing with no ghost. I ain't afraid of no ghost. I am afraid of ghosts. Yes, I am. The next day, and the perfume smell had gone unbearable. We could all smell it at this point, and we decided it might have been mould under the carpet on the stairs, so we called the landlord. He answered his phone and we said that there's a smell on the stairs. We're worried that it might be mould. At this point he laughs. We're like, what's funny? And he said, I get this every year. And we're like, what? He goes, a few years back the lady next door was asking how things were going, and she mentioned a story she had heard about the house. Apparently a single lady had lived there years ago and died in the house. Her body wasn't found for days, by which time it was starting to smell, Apparently she was waxing the stairs while she slipped down the stairs, broke her neck on the marble floor below. It was said that she was discovered when the house smelled of rot on floor wax. He goes and said that every year students called him saying it smells or that it creaks and makes noises. He said it was so bad the first year that he had to come and cover the stairs in carpet because he kept saying they all felt like they were going to fall down them all the time. This is where it gets awful. Okay, so the first part was fine. This is where it gets a bit weird. Bloody hell. He goes on to say, I've got some photos of the stairs under the carpet that show scratch marks where she must have tried to save herself. He then says, take a good look at the stone at the bottom of the stairs. So we do, and we notice a huge crack in it. He says, that's where she hit her head. No. The worst thing that ever happened to me and my friend was when my roommate and I were up in my room in the attic and we heard the stairs to my room creaking. We just assumed it was another roommate, so I said come in, and the door pushes ever so slightly. I was like come in, and the door moves again. I went over to the open door and no one was there. I slammed the door close in a heartbeat and we both jumped to my bed shit scared, and oh my god. And then this is the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. We heard something say, can't I come in? Outside the door, followed by steps going down. Oh my god, I got chills. Imagine though, imagine. Can't I come in? No! 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 Absolutely not! Stay out there! No! Kirsty, was it Kirsty or Christy? Kirsty, you have outdone yourself, my friend. That was so magnifique. That was so good. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there. Thanks so much for all your entries. I have so many to go back to have a read. If you want to send me your own ghost story, email them to sendboosentry@gmail.com, and I'll see you next time. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, hit that bell thing, you know, that ding-a-ling-a-ling, that bell, and yeah, stay spooky kids, stay spooky.